Welcome to the Aligned Leader podcast. Our guest today is Tammy Klotz. Tammy is a vibrant executive with over 3 decades of diverse experience in the manufacturing industry, specializing in cybersecurity and transformational leadership. She has a unique aptitude for simplifying IT and cybersecurity concepts and making them accessible to all business executives. She facilitates engaging in non-technical discussions that resonate with people, empowering them through knowledge sharing. She also does public speaking and thought leadership as her passions, and she always is excited to connect with others in these areas. In fact, she thrives on connecting and engaging with people, bringing diverse stakeholders together under a common goal and drawing inspiration from collaboration and input from all levels of the team. Inclusivity is at the heart of her leadership approach, with an open door policy that encourages everyone's contribution. Outside of work, she holds a bachelor's degree and is certified in CISM, CISSP, and CRISC. She's actively involved in several professional organizations, including serving as the president of the Lehigh Valley chapter of Cloud Security Alliance and being a member of InfraGard, Delaware Valley, Philadelphia Women in Cybersecurity, ISC2, and ISACA. Welcome, Tammy. Glad to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you for that introduction. Apologies for all that alphabet soup that's there, but we can try to break that down in our conversation today for sure. So,
Absolutely. And I apologize if I mispronounce some of those acronyms, because I know that sometimes, the acronym is not just spelled out. It's said in a certain way, but
it's all good. It's all good. Not to worry. Not to worry.
thank you. You can see how ignorant I am about IT and cybersecurity, right? So speaking of which, you're a CISO. Tell me a little bit about how that happened, and if somebody wanted to someday be a CISO, what would they need to do?
Sure. So CISO first stands for Chief Information Security Officer, for those who may not be familiar with the acronym. I've been doing this now for about 10 years at a couple of different companies. And prior to that, I had done a bunch in more of a pure technology type of role. But, what does a chief information security officer do? A CISO, a CISA, we say it a bunch of different ways as well. But, my primary responsibility is to ensure that my organization is protected. So having spent most of my career in manufacturing, it's very easy for me to translate what I need to do from a security perspective for the organization to parallel what we try and thrive to do in manufacturing from a safety perspective. So what are the things that I need to do, that my team needs to do to protect the organization? And protect them from what? I can protect them from threats that are coming from the outside of the organization, the bad actors who are actually trying to get in and cause business disruption. I can protect them from folks in the inside who are potentially, looking to do harm because they are disgruntled at a particular situation, or maybe completely accidentally end up, sharing information that they should not have shared in a particular area. When it comes to manufacturing as well, the other piece of the equation is making sure that the plant continues to operate and can make the product that it needs to. So allowing that to continue to happen is, what me and my team actually do. And, did I know that this is what I wanted to do? This is what I went to school for? No, right? Like, I think what you'll find is that, there's a variety of different individuals who either aspire to become a chief information security officer, or there's the other camp where they kind of maybe fall into the position, right, because of other experiences that they have. So for me personally, I never said I wanted to be a CISO when I grew up. That was not in my language. But when I was given the opportunity, I actually had interviewed for a different position on the leadership team that was forming. And the hiring manager came back to me and said, I want you on the team, but I don't want you in this role you applied for. I want you in the security role. And I was like, really? Like, there's got to be somebody more qualified. Why me? Like all of those questions. But what he shared with me at that point in time resonated loudly. And this answers your question with regards to, if I want to be a CISO, what do I need to do? Right. So what he said to me is that you understand the business, you have great relationships with the leadership team, and have a controls minded philosophy of what it means to need to protect different components of the organization. You can figure out the rest, right? So I'm not a technology or a technologist. I'm not the one who is turning the valves and making the changes, a hands-on keyboard, but I'm leading the individuals who are actually doing that, and being able to understand the business and speak the business language and translate why we need to protect the business and how the things that can do harm to the organization need to be prevented.
Yeah, and that's extremely important. I think of I worked in manufacturing. I also worked in the military, and you know, not that we were worried necessarily about cyber attacks, although that was certainly a concern. We were actually more concerned about spillage.
Mm,
We've got classified information, and somehow we divulged it, not intentionally, but that's one of those threats that you talked about. You talked about the bad actors. The ransom type threats. You talked about someone that's disgruntled, which certainly in the military we've had that where, hey,
sure.
you know, we've taken tons of classified documents out of a secure vault and sold it to somebody or gave it to somebody, and then we have the spillage where it was unintentional, but it still happened, and
Right.
all those need to be protected, and it's a world where you can't really see. It's not like I can put a security guard out front and it's obvious, but you can't really see what you're doing secure cyber wise to protect your facility, right? I mean, it's not evident, right?
It's not visible,
It's,
right?
there
But
you go. That's
conceptually, it's the same thing, right? The security guard just takes on a variety of different personas or capacities,
right.
right? And what they're actually standing guard of or protecting, is very different. Are they protecting the email system? Are they protecting the network? Are they
Oh,
protecting
yeah,
the data or
great
the
point.
identity of the individuals, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we have multiple guards that protect different things. So
yeah. Okay, awesome. Yeah, great analogy there. Very, very, very on point analogy there. I appreciate that.
sure.
One of the things that I read in your bio is that you are a thought leader and a public speaker, and I'm a Toastmaster. So, um, in Toastmasters, we always say, people would rather die than get up in public and give a speech. But there is that part of the population that enjoys doing public speaking, and not just doing public speaking, but doing it correctly. I mean,
Mm.
anybody can get up and blab for a period of time, but there's also the question of how effective are you as a public speaker. So tell me a little bit about how is that something that you kind of fell into, or is that something that you said, hey, this is something that I enjoy and I really want to do this?
So, at a very young age, I participated in like the local Optimist Club, right? So, developing speeches, delivering speeches, and I didn't necessarily love it then, but it definitely, I think, helped me kind of mature to where I am today from a public speaking perspective. I was kind of the ground level entry point, right? But the other thing, from a schooling and education background, I went to college to be a math teacher, right? So being in front of a group of students, in front of an audience, has always been something that gave me a lot of energy, right? And I think that's the point where um, why this is, I guess, very natural to me, because where I get my joy and my satisfaction and my energy from is when I am in front of a group of people, professionals, students, whoever the audience is. When something clicks for the folks in the audience and you see their eyes light up, you know that they've made a connection with what you're saying. That is when I can be very proud that says, I did it. I connected with them. They heard the message and they get it, right?
Right.
So I thoroughly enjoy public speaking. If I could do that full time, that would be my jam, right? But it is about, where do you get your energy from,
Right.
right? And what is most amazing in those situations is that you don't always realize the impact that you're having at that point in time, but when it comes back to you an hour, a week, a month, years later, that's when the satisfaction is just so overwhelming, right? Because
Yeah.
you didn't even know at that point in time the impact you were making until it comes back to you.
Right.
And getting those over and over again inspire you to keep going.
Yeah. I will have to agree with that. I was in the military. I was always a leader, and so I always had to get in front of a group of people. And then, the longer I stayed in, the larger the groups became. And then even in my civilian career, in most cases, I was a leader at some point. One of my last jobs was a COO of a engineering company, and you got to be able to get up and not just speak, but speak effectively. But 5 years ago, I joined Toastmasters, and I was like, I was not really excited about that. I was like, I've done public speaking before. I don't have a problem doing public speaking. I don't see how this is really going to help me. And it really changed my attitude, because
Mm,
one of the things you said about when you see that someone's connected with you, it makes it all worthwhile. And then it may be years before it comes back to you that, hey, something that you said in a seminar or wherever, someone said, hey, Tammy, I was at this event that you were speaking at, and you said, do this. And that, when I heard that, I was like, yeah, okay, but I did that, and now look where I'm at, right? So I
mhm,
appreciate that. And that's one of the joys that I got from Toastmasters was I started realizing I'm not just getting up and speaking, but I'm telling a story, and I'm trying to affect people. And I actually do enjoy that. As a matter of fact, part of the reason why I'm doing podcast now was it was a project for Toastmasters, and I thought,
mm,
I did a podcast with an HR leader who's also a Toastmaster, and I was like, you know what, this might be kind of cool to get leaders to talk about themselves and tell great effective stories that could help somebody, someone that's looking to break into a particular industry, someone's looking at doing certain, different things. This is a great way to help spread that message. So that's really cool. And so tell me, largest audience that you've spoken to.
So probably in the 300-ish mark, probably
Okay.
the biggest so far, right? Definitely have shared the stage with a lot of colleagues and peers in the space as well. And it's very rewarding as well when you are sharing the stage with other recognized leaders in your industry, and you get to share ideas and complement one another on accomplishments, struggles, and the learnings that you can benefit from.
And are you mostly focused on IT cybersecurity, or do you also do motivational speaking, transformational leadership, those types of subjects as well?
So, all of the above. So, definitely, given the networks that you spoke of earlier in the introduction, there's a lot of speaking engagements that I'll do that are specific to the industry, whether it's cyber, whether technology. But I also will do a lot from a leadership perspective, talking about, successes, what do I believe makes a leader successful in their role and in the organization. That's where the book came from, I Leading with Empathy and Grace. So that was a series of stories to share with individuals. So I do the leadership ones, and then transformationally we'll talk about taking an organization from point A to point B, and what are the things that you need to think about from an organizational change management perspective as well.
Excellent, excellent. I would love to. I would love to hear you speak someday. So maybe I will. If you've got something online, I'd love to. I'd love to go there and listen because
Okay.
I'm I'm just starting the speaking circuit again. It's right now. I'm not super excited about it, but I want to become excited about it. I'm
Mhm.
like you. I'm not looking at this being my primary source of income, but I just think it's fun, and I enjoy it. But the part that I don't enjoy as much is okay. Now I need to go find these speaking gigs. I mean, I'd love for people to say, "Oh yeah, we'd love to have you." Oh, great.
Yeah,
That
and I think that's honestly one of the blessings that I do have, right? Is because of my brand in the industry,
yeah,
I will have folks proactively reach out and say, "Hey, we're hosting an event. We would love to have you come speak."
yeah,
So I will say that right now I'm not spending a lot of time seeking them out. It's kind of the other way around, which also
nice.
makes it easier to do.
Yeah,
But then it's a matter of really prioritizing, right? What needs to come first, and how many I can do realistically,
yeah,
and maintain the proper ethics for actually doing my day
right,
job, right? So.
right. Yeah, yeah, and you know, you your company does pay you, right? So you probably should.
Yeah, they get first priority for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, sorry, it'd be kind of neat if they were, hey, go and speak as much as you want, but in the end, it's like, hey,
Yeah,
you're
that
you're
that's not on my goals and objectives, so
yeah,
I need to,
yeah,
yeah,
you're on the C-suite. You're there for a reason, right?
absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
let's uh let's t- uh let's turn a little bit and talk about talent management specific to cybersecurity, IT, technology. What
Mhm.
do you see? What are the kinds of trends that you're seeing for the future? In the engineering space, we have more engineers leaving the market than are coming into the market, but the engineering space is not going down. It's increasing. How's that? What's that look like in the cyber and IT and technology in space?
So definitely in the cyberspace, right? The demand is high, right? And there's more and more colleges and university who are offering degrees and programs or certificates specific to cyber. I don't remember or don't know what the current number of openings is, but it's always quoted to be extremely high, and the supply
Yep,
is much less than the demand. I think the challenge that we have in the industry is oftentimes, as positions are being posted for hire, there's this experience qualification that gets added to all of the job descriptions. And we want somebody with 2 or 3 or 5 years experience. Well, that's not necessarily going to come with the folks who are coming out of school wanting to
right,
get started in the field, et cetera. So what I will typically do, and I just did a panel discussion at a local community college last week on this same subject, and it was like, Tammy, who do you look to hire into your teams? And I think that one of the beauties about the cybersecurity space is that there's so many different things that you
right,
can do. And Ideally, I would love to have a kind of like a rotational program to say,
Okay.
okay, here's something that you can do from an operational perspective if you're looking at logs and responding to threats. Or I could have somebody who's going out and doing some testing to see if they can actually get into a system. Or I
Right.
can have somebody who's writing policies and procedures and testing audit controls. So there's so many different pieces of it. So what I look for when somebody is wanting to enter into a cyber role is more around potential, attitude, and aptitude.
Okay.
If there's a passion and a desire and a hunger to learn, come on, join me and we'll teach you the rest. So just kind of what I said when I first entered into the security role myself, it was really about bring your core competencies with you.
Right.
We can teach you the rest from a securities perspective, or we can learn, because on the job experience is going to be, I believe, so much more beneficial
Right.
because it's real life experiences in that situation.
Right.
So I think, there's definitely a need. There's definitely demand. I think we need to do a better job as hiring managers in the cyberspace, working with HR to define what the actual requirements are. I
Yeah.
don't necessarily need somebody with a 4-year degree. That's okay. I'll take somebody who
Right.
has gotten a certificate in the security space, and bring them in and teach and have them learn by shadowing, by spending time in the job and learning what they need to do as well.
Right. And you brought up a great point. A lot of companies have like a rotational engineering program. And I mean, I love the idea of having, you're absolutely right. I have recruited cyber primarily for defense. And, there are so many different stripes of cyber people that, a well-rounded cyber person that has experienced a whole bunch of different, um, you know, positions seems to be would be more valuable than, hey, you're a SOC guy and you've been a SOC guy for the last 20 years or however long. I mean, and I'm saying words that I don't really know what they mean, but as a recruiter, I'm
SOC's
pretty
not
good
what
at.
you put on every morning, right? Now, SOC,
Well,
Security Operations Center.
yeah,
Yes, yes, yes,
I mean, a
yes.
lot of times,
Mhm.
sometimes people think, well, I am a recruiter, right? But I'm a mechanical engineer. I've been in the army. I've worked in manufacturing. I've worked in different industries. I was a CEO of an engineering company. So I'm not just a recruiter. I do know most of the time what I'm talking about, or some of the time. I don't, maybe most is not a good word either. But it's also important that, hey, if I'm talking to someone that I really don't understand their job, I do research because I don't want to sound like I'm an idiot. And
Sure.
sometimes despite my research I still sound like an idiot, but it's like, but I will tell you, most of my candidates are like, hey, I know you're not a fill in the blank. I was just talking to electrical engineers today and I'm like, look, I know generally what you do, but don't ever ask me to be an electrical engineer because I'm good at starting electrical fires and that's it. i've,
Mhm, mhm.
I've,
Yeah.
I've
You
proven
know
that.
enough,
Yeah.
you cultivate yourself to know enough to ask the
Yeah.
questions to get the
Yeah.
answers that you're looking
Yeah.
for, right?
Yeah.
So, and
So,
and
but I
that's more, I think, a gauge on aptitude and attitude, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. But I do like the idea of, rotational, a rotational type of position where, you get a lot of exposure and you might find that, hey, I'm really good in this one particular area. I'm not as great in these other areas. And,
mhm,
and I know that the military, uh, for transitioning military, I know that they push a lot to, hey, the cyber
absolutely. Yeah.
is really growing cottage industry. And you don't care that you have a bachelor's degree in history because it doesn't matter. Like you said, get the certificates and then get the experience, and you'll be a much greater asset to that company than getting a cybersecurity, necessarily going back to school to get a cybersecurity degree, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I do think one of the other challenges that we have is when you look at a lot of the certifications, right? You mentioned the CISSP and the C-Risk and the CISM, the ones that I have. But the challenge with getting a lot of those certifications is that you need to be able to fulfill the experience box.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of a chicken and egg. Like I
Yeah.
want to go get the cert, but I can't because I haven't worked in the field long enough. So how do
Right.
I complete this process? So sometimes it's just the time required to get
Right.
the requirements to test for the certification takes a little bit of time.
Right. Right. Um, so tell me about how is AI affecting the technology space, the cyberspace, the IT space? Is there, everyone's talking about, oh my God, AI is going to, steal everybody's jobs, and I don't see that at all in the areas that I recruit most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that I do know that if there's an area that could be of danger to someone, it is the technology side, simply because in some cases it's, hey, knowing how to write the code, and it's easily replicated. So can you talk
Yeah,
a little
so
about
so let me talk to it specifically from a cyber perspective, right? Because there's definitely a yin and a yang to AI in the industry, right? So from a defense perspective of what a cybersecurity team is trying to do to protect their organization, there are a lot of tools that are part of the toolkit, the toolbox, that are bringing AI capabilities to bear to make their tools more effective, more efficient, to drive down a lot of the human analysis that needs to be done. And if they're looking at it, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of alerts that are coming in, it takes a human being a long time to parse
that?
through all of that, right?
Yeah.
So what a lot of these tools are doing are using AI to do that parsing and
Okay.
really filter out the noise. So from that perspective, that's where you can see a lot of benefit of AI in the space. Now, does that mean it's going to replace all of the SOC analysts? No, right? Is it going to change the type of work that they do? Absolutely. And I was recently at an event, and it was a legal event, and one of the lawyers was on stage, and he made a comment about, oh yeah, I always get asked, like, is AI going to replace all the lawyers? And his answer was very simple but profound. And he said, it's not going to replace lawyers. It's going to replace lawyers who don't use it. And I think that is a very
I,
solid
yeah.
statement, and it translates to any industry, right?
Right.
So, is it going to replace a security operations center analyst? No, but it is going to replace somebody who doesn't use it, or a tool
Yeah.
that doesn't bring it as part of its
Right.
set of capabilities. So that's kind of one side of it.
Yeah.
On the other side, as much as we're using it to protect the organization, the bad actors that are
Yeah.
out there are using AI to disguise the attacks more effectively, right? So that is a continual challenge of, how do you stay ahead of what the threat actors are actually doing, because they're bringing those tools to bear as well. And probably the most simple example that I can share with you is, one of the big things for us is, phishing emails that make their way into an organization, and
Right.
somebody accidentally clicks on a link or intentionally clicks on a link because they thought they should. And, all hell breaks loose after that.
Right.
Um, and typically, what we would alert people to is watch for spelling mistakes, watch for grammatical errors, watch for things that, have a sense of urgency, right? And now with AI, those all kind of go away.
Oh, that's a
You're
wow.
not going to get a phishing email anymore that has spelling mistakes in it,
Right.
because the
Yeah.
AI engine is going to correct that for you,
Yeah.
or it's going to write it in such a fashion that there are no grammatical mistakes anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they become harder to detect in that mechanism.
Yeah.
And then if you think about it, like we'll think about, what do we do from a video perspective, from deep fakes, from voice, attacks as well. All of that is now being aided by AI, and not for good. Right. So there's as much good use as there is negative use
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
space.
Wow. Yeah. That's kind of scary.
Mhm.
I never thought about the phishing emails, being now they're going to be pretty much correct. I mean, syntax may be a little bit off because that's, sometimes, I mean, I use AI extensively, and sometimes it's like, yeah, you didn't quite, that sentence wasn't quite baked correctly, but it was close.
Depends
But
on how you prompt the engine to write it,
well, that's very true too.
right?
But
So
but but you're right. You're not going to see this phishing email where it's just very poor English, or it's like me. I speak Italian, but I know that when I write Italian, I write it like a child because I really don't know Italian grammar all that well. And
mhm.
a lot of times when we get phishing emails, we also get those type where, yeah, it's obvious you're trying to act like you're an American living in the United States, but it's obvious that you're not an American living in the United States because of the way you compose your sentences. Syntax is off, right?
So write my email so that I appear to be a US
Right.
national
Correct.
writing
Correct.
this, right?
Absolutely. I mean,
There
I've
you go.
done that with, I'm very straightforward and to the point, and I've had to back up and say, hey, I want this email to be a little bit more conversational, and I'll dump it into AI, and and it was like, wow, I didn't realize I was that conversational. Uh, you know,
And probably the people reading that will know that as well if they
yeah,
know you well
well, there's no doubt about that either. It's like, wow, when did you, uh, when did you, become such a, nice person, or
enough. But think of the positive side of that, right? For folks who are working in a global organization as well, right? And if you're concerned if your message of your email is going to resonate with
correct.
an Asian employee and somebody who works and operates in a very different culture,
Yeah,
you can use
absolutely.
it for good to help you, rewrite that message so that it
Right.
is more well received.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I use AI extensively because there's a lot of power there. I also realize I do need to read what I'm getting out of AI because sometimes they get stuck on the wrong thing.
Sure.
Um, but yeah,
Validation is key.
there is a lot of power there, and you know I know someday that my job may be replaced by AI, but hey, you know what? We there someday could be a closed loop there between
Mhm.
sourcing and HR, which is okay. I mean, plenty of jobs. I mean, think about this. There was a time when there would be someone standing outside your window with a horn waking you up for to go to work. Well, then we
Mhm.
developed, the alarm clock, and we no longer needed that person standing out there at 5 a.m. going, Nick, get up. It's time to go to work. Right.
Or you went to the library and looked in the card catalog to find a book, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
then
Yes. So technology transformation, it's all good. But yeah, it's just something that we need to be aware of. And like you said, if you're not using it, then what are you doing? You're
Mhm.
going to go away because you're not embracing that type of change. So, interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, my key message is, it's here to stay. We need to figure out how to embrace it and use it. And just like anything else, there are going to be people who use it for good things, and there will be people who use it for bad things. And think about when we didn't have the internet. It's the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yep.
This is just the next thing.
That is very
So.
true. And I can remember those days.
Me too. Me too. Yes. My kids, not so much, but yes. So.
When I sometimes when I talk to my nieces and nephews, they're much younger, and it's like, yeah, you really don't know. But in 50 years, they're going to be saying the same thing to their children or their
Absolutely.
so,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
I was at a session earlier today, honestly, and one of the it was about CIOs and technology and where credit being due and not but they did a whole thing on Back to the Future, and I think it's crazy if you go watch that movie now. How much of that has become reality? Who knows what the next 10, 20, 30 years will bring.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, Tammy, what are your final thoughts that you would like to leave with our audience today?
So my final thoughts would be, from a leadership perspective, I think the most important thing for our audience to leave with today and to lead with is making sure that when you're in a position of leadership, that you are leading with your authentic self,
Hmm.
and being focused on building relationships, which will build a foundation of trust so that moving forward, you can move together. And that goes to the inclusivity part that you talked about in my intro as well. Because if you bring people together with you, you will be much more successful, because you're working collaboratively towards a common goal for mutual success.
Right. Yeah. Great. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly. And I think that, that is a message that we should all really concentrate on.
Excellent.
It's been a pleasure chatting with you, Tammy. For those of you watching this podcast, I hope you've received some pearls of wisdom, and I hope that you'll join me for my next podcast coming soon. Remember, aligned leaders are a superpower in great companies, strengthening the bonds of the company's strategic goals with a better informed and better led employee base. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, Nick.